everybody. Welcome back to the OC YouTube channel. My name is Taylor Gonzaga, and I'm the founder and artistic director of Opera Cecilia, a company made by and for emerging artists and local talent in terms of show production, but also a company that is meant to kind of bridge the gaps between opera and other musical genres and expand our own musical horizons. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for this channel if you're interested in more content like this, or if you would like to support us in the continuation of the artistic director reaction and analysis series as well, which we will also continue to update. Which brings me into the new series that we will be starting today. First of all, the source material that we will be using, that is this textbook right here. It is called The Concise Edition of World Music, A Global Journey. It's by Terry E. Miller and Andrew Shadiati. I only got one semester of world music, and I just didn't think it was enough. It wasn't encapsulating enough. I think it's important that we call this the Learn With Me series because I'm not by no means an expert on world music. I studied primarily Western classical music in both my undergraduate and graduate degrees. And while that gave me a large array of musical insights and musical intelligence that I've acquired over the years, it did not give me enough of a sense of music on a global level outside of that one semester. Consider this kind of a journey of learning alongside me more than me being an expert on this. So I'm starting at the very beginning of this textbook because there was one interesting thing in the textbook's introduction: music, universal language, or culturally specific activity. So I wanted to read to you real quickly what they say about music being a universal language, so to speak, and then I wanted to provide some of my own opinions and insights and see what you all think in the comment section as well, because we love starting dialogue on our videos. It is frequently asserted that music is a universal or international language, a meta-language that expresses universal human emotions and transcends the barrier of language and culture. The problems with this metaphor are many. First, music is not a language, at least not in the sense of conveying specific meanings through specific symbols, in standard patterns analogous to syntax and governed by rules of structure analogous to grammar. While attempts have been made to analyze music in linguistic terms, these ultimately failed because music is of a totally different realm. Second, it is questionable whether music really can transcend linguistic barriers and culturally determined behaviors, though some forms of emotional communication, such as crying, are so fundamentally human that virtually all perceive it the same way. We see with music that it does not support this notion that music is a universal language, unfortunately, and we do not believe such a concept to be useful in examining the world's musics. Music expression is both culturally determined and culturally encoded with meaning. The field of semiotics, which deals with signs, systems of symbols and their meanings, offers an explanation of how music works. Although semiotics was not created specifically for music, it has been adapted for this purpose. A semiotic view of music asserts that the musical sound itself is a neutral symbol that has no inherent meaning. Different ethnicities, different cultures around the world assign meaning to the music. I have myself in the past referred to music as a universal language from kind of an emotional standpoint before, but I also think that there's truth to this. And I think that I don't want to say it was an ignorant point of view, but I think maybe it wasn't seeing the entire picture. And I really want to make sure that throughout my life, I'm not trying to neutralize things so much anymore. My lens is not necessarily the only perspective. And the more that I open myself up to seeing what other people's perspectives might be, especially in my own field, which is music, the more beautiful and rich my life becomes as a result. And I think that while music may not be a universal language, so to speak, or universal in and of itself, music can still be unifying because it is something that we can share and appreciate about each other. It's something that we can use to broaden each other's horizons and form relationships. The series is going to challenge what our definition of music might be to us, and it's also going to allow us all to celebrate each other for our differences and for the diversity. And I'm hoping that the series on the OC Music channel also allows us to realize how beautiful our differences and our diversity are, and how it's something to be celebrated because it creates so much nuance in this world, so much variety. I also want to make sure that I don't just say music is all universal and I'm only thinking of Western music, because Western music is not the only music that exists by any stretch of the imagination, but I would be interested in what you all have to say in the comments, so totally let me know. Now we're going to head to our first world destination, which is Australia. We will be talking about Australia Australian Aborigine music, particularly the music of the Didgeridoo. Our arrival in Australia. The Australian wilderness is home to several unique species of animals. The interior of the continent, known as the outback or bush, mainly consists of vast plains and large desert regions. A few inhabitants of the interior are mostly members of Australia's well-known indigenous population, who are referred to as Aborigines. While most Aborigines live in urban settings today, a government reserve in the Northern Territory known as Arnhem Land is home to more than 30,000 Aborigines who maintain cultural practices that have existed for roughly 40,000 years. Wow, that's some ancient wisdom. Many continue to follow a semi-nomadic lifestyle. These Aborigines require few material possessions, mostly related either to hunting or spiritual practices, musical instruments. The close affinity such Australian Aborigines have with their environment is revealed in their totemistic belief system, the relationship of an individual or group with animals or natural objects or elements, such as specific mountains or the ocean. First impressions of Didgeridoo, this is what they say. Sometimes there can be vocal exclamations in Didgeridoo music, and they're accompanied by a steady pulse of wooden clapsticks and the low rumble of the didgeridoo. An end-blown wooden trumpet, that is the most distinctive feature of traditional music from Arnhem Land. The vocalist, when there is a vocalist included, is like a storyteller shouting his words to all who would listen. The example that we're going to listen to is a welcome song done on the didgeridoo, so it does not have a vocal component to it, but it's really cool to hear that a vocal component can exist because that's kind of my area. I love different vocalisms from different cultures and different types of vocal music. This instrument is traditionally made from a tree branch, typically eucalyptus, hollowed out by termites. Some didgeridoo are made of bamboo. Most of these instruments are between 3.5 and 7 feet long with a diameter of 1 to 3 inches. The ring of the blowing end is covered with beeswax to protect the performer's mouth from the wood's rugged edge and to shape the blowing end to a preferred size. The guttural sound of the didgeridoo is made by relaxing the lips and blowing air through the mouth to make the lips flap or buzz. The vibration echoes through the instrument, producing a deep fundamental drone with a multitude of overtones. Fundamental to playing this instrument is the utilization of the circular breathing technique. This is something that other instrumentalists use as well, and it's used by some instrumentalists even in Western music, and it's something that's always fascinated me as a singer who has to adopt a certain amount of breathing technique herself. We as singers are essentially wind instruments. This creates a continuous exhaled airflow, making it possible to produce a steady drone over long periods. Air is expelled through the lips by tongue and cheek muscles. As the performer exhales, he simultaneously inhales through his nose to replenish the air reserve stored in the cheeks. This is Traditional Didgeridoo Rhythms by Lewis Burns, who is an Aboriginal Australian artist. He is a Tabaga man born in, I think it's pronounced Dubbo. And he has been learning about his Aboriginal culture for as long as he can remember. He continues to practice and respect these life skills each day and still learns and grows from this ancient knowledge. Lewis's love of his heritage is evident when you speak with him, and depicted even more in his Aboriginal crafts, traditional dancing, didgeridoo performances, mural paintings, and teaching. He is very dedicated to sharing what he knows with others to help keep these customs alive. He paints with in the traditional style of his culture as well as contemporary styles, and he has exhibited globally and performed globally with his handcrafted didgeridoos. Each piece of Lewis's artwork tells a story that will live on forever through the generations as the artwork is handed down from one family to another. So it's beautiful. He's dedicated to preserving his cultural practices. Here is some traditional didgeridoo, a welcome song by Lewis Burns. What I find is so cool is that you can actually notice his circular breathing technique. You can see his cheeks puff up at different times. You can see him continuously inhaling through his nose. And I just find that so fascinating. That is something that is allowing him to create these really, really long tonal lines without having to stop the instrument completely. I also think it's so cool that there is like a very, very definite beat that he's keeping, but he's experimenting or using very deliberately different tones and different structures of the tone and different rhythm structures. And it is very reminiscent of like storms that you may see in Australia, or different aspects of the Australian natural landscape, or reminiscent of maybe different animal calls. So all of it has a connection to nature that I feel is, I don't know, that's so cool. I love music that connects to nature. So this is really incredible, and it has both a tonal element but a very percussive element to it as well. There we go. There's the clapsticks. And his rhythmic structure changed. What is so cool about it is he's like subdividing the rhythm sometimes with like in almost a syncopated way, but it's just like very, very complex rhythmic structure, but you have this like basic, the use of the clapsticks keeping that dominant beat. I love the percussive element to it, and I love the deep, rich tones that this instrument can produce. He has such amazing technique that he can last so long. The entirety of this piece, even though we're not listening to all 3 minutes and 29 seconds of it, he's staying consistent with this instrument this entire time, and that is so impressive from the standpoint of somebody who also has my instruments inside of my body, but I'm also a wind instrument, and so I know what it's like to have breathing technique as a huge component. There was one comment I wanted to share with you on this video down here that I find so interesting. The fact that the music like this was created over 1,000 years ago by tribes completely isolated from the rest of the world, and yet it sounds so much like modern Western dubstep or hard bass music is amazing. It just shows how strikingly similar yet strikingly different people and cultures are from each other. And so it just goes to show that we do have commonalities, we do have musical sensibilities across cultures, but at the same time we have so much beautiful diversity that we get to offer the world through our music as well. And this Australian Aboriginal music is a big example of how incredibly interesting and nuanced and beautiful that it really can be. It's a different kind of beauty than perhaps going and seeing an oratorio work or an opera, but who's to say that this is any more, any less beautiful? All of it is so beautiful because it creates this incredible cultural and expression-based landscape all over the world. That is the end of our first little unit on world music. This was Australian Aborigine music, particularly the use of the traditional didgeridoo. And this was Lewis Burns. This was the artist that was featured in this video. So thank you so much to Lewis Burns for sharing your culture with the rest of the world in this way. And thank you so much to the authors of this textbook. I hope you enjoyed this exploration of Australian music with me. I'm so wowed by the beauty of the entire world, and I hope that you all are wowed with me. I'll see you all around here again soon.